Mark Crimmins went there, I believe.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
You're exactly right. So we've got some good representation in our community, and both Nevin and Mark, they do a wonderful job, and they're excellent lawyers.
I think that's probably true. Nevin doesn't know much about sports, but that's another story. We have Nevin on Nevin and Randy Kuhlman on with a sports show every Friday in the 4 o'clock hour. It's fun. It's fun.
I know you do, but I'll bet Nevin didn't tell you he doesn't know much about sports.
Nevin would never cop to that. As a matter of fact, I think he believes that I know nothing about sports. And
well,
I'm going to disagree with him. I have played a baseball game once.
Well, good. That's wonderful. Speaking of sports, did you watch this weekend the football game?
Oh God, heart attack time! My God, I couldn't believe what happened in the Tampa Bay and Rams game, and I seriously did not believe my eyes during the Chiefs and Bills game. That was just out of this world.
I agree. I could make an argument that in the entire history of the NFL, there's never been such a special weekend as this weekend, and never been a game like the Chiefs game last night against the Bills.
Oh, I think you're right. Some are saying that the Chiefs-Bills game was the greatest game ever. It could be. There's an argument out there, I'm sure.
Well, it's now known as the 13-second game.
Gosh, I can't believe the game turned out that way. I just can't believe it. I've never seen anything like that at the professional level. I can only chalk up the Bills' loss to the defense must have been tired after chasing Patrick Mahomes around most of the game. But
I think you're very astute in that comment. If you play the last three downs, you will see the defense. The defense was just dog tired. They couldn't move.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing probably would have applied to Kansas City had the Bills had the opportunity to have the ball in their possession and run it. I think we're going to see a change in that major league rule during the playoffs. Maybe not during the rest of the season, but my hallucination is that the commissioner and powers that be are going to change that rule that during the playoffs, every team gets to have the ball once.
Sure. I hope that's the case. Yeah, the Bills should have been allowed to respond. That's for sure. Anyway. I hope the NFL takes care of that. They're not taking care of much, but I hope they take care of that. Joe Coleman is our guest. Joe, are you still? Oh, boy, golly, we're losing people right and left all of a sudden. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know. I suppose it's an RN somehow, but I can't be sure of that. But Sam Clovis, we lost him last hour, and now Joe Coleman this hour. Okay, Joe. I had Sam Clovis on the air in the last hour, and that's the same thing happened. He just went away, and I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm so very sorry. I had a call come in, and it just cut away to that call instead of staying with allowing me to. So I apologize.
Oh, is that what happened? Okay. All right. Yeah. Anyway,
Joe. So speaking of miracles, that's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I understand Jesus has a marketable skill.
He does, and it for my money, it points out to me that Jesus was a fun guy. He was not the milquetoast guy that everybody makes it. That a lot of paintings make him out to be very dull and drawl, and I think he was the guy that everybody wanted to hang around with. You know it?
Could have been, but he did speak to his mother this way. His mother Mary came to him and said, "We're out of wine." This was at a wedding. We're out of wine, and she kind of implied that maybe Jesus, could help out a little bit. So Jesus replied, "Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come." In other words, I'm not ready to show everybody I'm God yet.
Boy, you are so right. I'm always amazed at your recall of Bible Bible verses and the exact quoting of the Bible.
Oh,
Nice
no.
job.
You're giving me way too much credit and you know it. No, I looked it up online as soon as we knew, as soon as I knew what we were going to talk about. No. I'd love to have that sort of command of the Bible, but I do not.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because, you know, his response to Mary not only seemed abrasive, but it might even be a little bit disrespectful. And I think most people, just like you and like me, when you hear that, you think, oh my gosh, that was pretty tough. But, you know, when you start to break it apart, you start to see some things that at first blush you might not apprehend or you might miss. You know, the last time we were on the air, Mike, we talked about Mary being the Ark of the Covenant. You will recall that, and how and the comparison between David going to the hill country and getting the Ark and bringing the Ark back to the temple and spending some time in the hill country first. And we have the story of Mary carrying the Lord, i.e., she is the physical Ark, going to the hill country to see her kinswoman Elizabeth, and how she stays there for a certain amount of time, just as Jesus did, or as David did in the hill country. So all throughout the New Testament, you are getting this point, counterpoint, back and forth about Mary being the new Eve, and what Eve wasn't able to do in terms of temptation and a relationship with the Lord, Mary was in fact able to do. So when you jump back to Genesis, you see that almost a dozen times in Genesis, Eve is referred to not by her name, but as woman. Woman, why this? Woman, why that? And what you're getting in the New Testament, in Christ responding that way to his mother, woman, what would you have me do, is reminiscent of woman in Genesis, Eve, what have you done? So the symbolism carries forward as well, in that as Mary introduced Christ to the world at the Nativity in Bethlehem, as his persona come into the world, Mary is now introducing Christ into his public world. And it's fitting that Mary, the mother of God, is the one who is making the introductions in the world of her son. And see how that kind of fits together?
I do, now that you bring it up and connect the dots that way. Jesus did say, and seemed to be admonishing his mother, you know, I'm not ready. What are you doing here? You know, it's my decision to make, and you're making it for me. But he went along with her suggestion, and the story is that Jesus ordered his servants to find some crocks of water, and they brought them forth, and when they tasted them, it was wine. And of course,
exactly. So what you have, and you look in the varying Gospels, is you have 6 stone jars that hold between 20 and 30 gallons each, and Jesus orders that they be filled to the brim, and then he tells the wine steward, take these to your master. And in the transition of the trip from the dipping of the water to taking it to the master, the wine steward finds the most tasty wine in the world, and the best wine. And that's why you get the response of, oh, you've saved the best. A big to-do is made not only about the quality, but the difference in the tradition of the wedding feast and the tradition of how people act things out now that Christ has come on the scene. It's kind of like just as something as simple as the serving of the wine has been turned on its head.
That's
go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, this is. What do you think? Is there a deeper significance to this story? I know you're trying to give it a little bit of deeper significance, but is there some real reason it happened this way?
Well, let me ask you the question. That's a perfect question. Why, of all the places in the world that Christ could have done his first miracle, I mean, he could have done it at the Transfiguration. He could have done it with the loaves and the fishes. He could have done it walking on water. He could have done the Sermon on the Mount. Why do you suppose he chose Cana at a wedding feast to enter into his public life and perform his first miracle?
Boy, I have no idea, to be honest with you. And I thought about it here in the last few minutes, and I can't come up with a reasonable answer. Yeah, those other things you mentioned, the Transfiguration, that would seem to be a more appropriate venue. But then again, I'm not God.
Well, he could have done it in front of, the thousands of people with the loaves and the fishes, as we've talked about. I mean, he could have done it in the temple at Jerusalem, but here at a wedding feast at Cana. Well, there may be some reasons for that. One of the reasons may be as fundamental as the fourth commandment: honor your father and your mother.
Mm-hmm.
And when Mary indicated, pay attention to him. By the way, Mary says to the wine servants, do what he tells you. Do you know those are the last words that Mary utters in the Bible?
I did not know that.
Do what he tells you. And isn't that fitting when you elongate that out, that is Mary's role to us, to tell us, do what my son tells you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's phenomenal that's, this stuff doesn't happen by accident, Michael.
No, that's exactly why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking, is because there are no mistakes here. This is an unraveling of a mystery, so to speak, or a revelation. Both are appropriate, and we could only, I guess, we can only make this into some sort of supposition, but that's what faith is.
Well, we look at you're exactly right about that. We have to have a need for faith, and if we had certitude, there would be no need for faith.
Right.
That's why the virtues of faith and hope will fall away when we die and are transferred into the eternal now, because we will have no more need for either faith nor hope, because we will have achieved the fact, the provable fact. So we won't need those things. But I digress. When you look back at this, some commentators talk about this first, the wedding feast at Cana is the precursor to the Eucharist. Okay, so what's happening here is that the lawyer in me says what's happening here is Christ is giving evidence of his power.
Sure.
And we see this in his ability to change water into wine. And we see it later in his ability to multiply the loaves. And then we see it later when he walks on water. So those three miracles kind of do the underpinning or the foundation for the transubstantiation, that is the changing of water and wine into the body and blood of Christ. And well, why is that? Well, Christ has already proven at the wedding feast at Cana he has power over wine and water. At the multiplication of the loaves, he proves that he has power over wheat bread. And at the walking on the water, he's proven that he has power over his own body. So it's kind of like that. Well, if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. There's that evidentiary sequence there to show that he, in fact, he's the guy with all the power.
I wonder why there's so much wine in the Bible. It's just, we're discussing this. that wine somehow played part in a revelation. And I noticed, from my readings of the Bible, there's plenty of wine being drank in the Bible. And
absolutely, and that's why I say I think that Christ was the guy that you wanted to have around. I think he was I think he was a good time guy. I think he was powerful. I think he was a man's man. We see so many times in the Bible where Christ has done something and the Pharisees whip up the crowd and the crowd gets mad and they're going to stone him or they're going to dismember him. Okay. And so what does the Bible say? The Bible says that Christ walks right out into the crowd and through the crowd, and the crowd parts away for him. Mike, the crowd doesn't part away for a milquetoast guy. The crowd doesn't part away for a wimp. My hallucination is that Jesus was a powerful figure, both mentally, physically, and by his appearance alone.
So the apostles went to him and said, Jesus, we want to party with you, huh? Because you're the man.
I think what a powerful fellow he must have been, that when he could walk along the lines and he could say to Andrew and to Peter, come follow me, and they dropped their nets, and he could say to James and John, the son of Zebedee, the sons of thunder, drop what you're doing and come follow me. And they do it? How does that happen? They do it? And interestingly enough, this is the first miracle that they see too, because the recounting of that story of the wedding feast at Cana talks about Jesus being there with his disciples. So they're getting a firsthand look at this guy that by his mere presence compelled them to leave their way of life and follow him. I mean, this is page-turning stuff, Michael.
Yes, it is. Joel Coleman is our guest. Joe, give us a call back in 7 or 8 minutes, will you?
Will do. Bye-bye.
All right. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. This program is being brought to you by Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters at 612 South 32nd Street here in town. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 515-576-6481 or online at www.fdwater.com. The weather, obituaries, all that stuff is coming up, but you probably won't want to hear the weather forecast, but I'm sorry.
the opportunity, if it's okay with you, to expand a little bit on what we were talking about. And when Mary makes this comment, they have no wine, that harkens back to the prophecy of Isaiah, because we see Isaiah in so many things foretelling about the coming of, particularly everybody thinks about Isaiah and the prophecy of the Nativity and the Messiah coming. And it's at Christmas time, that's, Isaiah is read all the time. But what was happening here when Mary said they have no wine, Mary realizes that what Isaiah was talking about when Isaiah said, he talked about the wine mourning as in sorrow, the vine languishing, and all the merry-hearted men, they had nothing more to drink or to sing about or do. And what that really was about is they had lost God. They had no more wine. And Mary, here we are at the wedding feast at Cana, and Mary is saying they have no wine. And what she's really talking about is they don't have you. And Jesus is saying to her, woman, my hour has not yet come, but she's calling him. She is calling him to his public life. And interesting, when you read this gospel in the gospel, it's the wedding feast at Cana starts out, and on the third day. Now, why in God's name do we talk about on the third day? Well, it's hearkening to this beginning of getting to the third day, to the resurrection of Christ. It is referencing in the future that Easter is coming. And when you really get into this, you find Isaiah saying that a couple of things are going to happen here. That the Lord is going to make everything right. He's going to give the finest feast, the finest wine. It's going to be for all peoples, and he will swallow up death forever. And interestingly enough, that chapter of Isaiah isn't about the Messiah. It is the Lord who will do this, Yahweh. So now, fast forward 1,000 years to Jesus, and Jesus is here, and he is doing the very same thing. And that first, will be a sacrificial banquet, okay? Because everybody knows that at the Jewish temple, what happens? Wine and flesh are sacrificed. Secondly,
oh no. Gosh, he was rolling there. Wine and flesh are sacrificed. Yes, I will ask him about that when he calls back. See, you started talking about wine and flesh being sacrificed, and the Almighty intervened. What do you?
I don't know how that that happened again.
I don't either. Maybe it's I have no idea. But anyway, what do you mean that wine and flesh are being sacrificed?
Well, that's exactly what happened at the Jewish temple. Both the fat and the sacrifices, the fat of animals and the sacrifices of wine was offered in the temple as sacrifices to Yahweh. Okay. So remember how they poured out the wine, the good wine, and then they would sacrifice from turtle doves to oxen to sheep to, that metaphor, the Lamb of God. Mm-hmm. Lambs are sacrificed. So that's the first thing. And Jesus is doing that very thing at Cana. Then you're also seeing in Isaiah that this is for all people, both Jew and Gentile. And then the last thing you're seeing is that he will undo the effects of the fall of Adam and Eve. And if you go back to Isaiah, it says he will swallow up death forever, and the Lord God will wipe away from all faces all tears, and the reproach of the people he will take away. Like I said, I mean, this is these gospel writers are writing about these things that smack so heavily of what is in what the Jewish people have been looking for 1,000 years, and Jesus does it at Cana. And it is so symbolic, and you can even get into the symbolism. There were 6 jars. There were 6 jars that were filled. The 6 days of creation, and how all of that is coupled together to make for a presentation of a wonderful time for us who are made in the image and likeness of God. Like I say, Mike, you can't make this stuff up. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Joe Coleman is our guest. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I don't think I've ever gone into depth with anyone as we have today on this particular passage. I am interested in the role of Mary most of all in this scenario and in this story and in this prophecy, if you will. She seems to be taking a leading role. She's the one that's calling out Jesus. That seems to be unusual. Is Mary that is Mary that sacred a person that she can actually command God as she would if she were commanding Jesus?
Well, that's the short answer is no. She's not commanding God. All she says, she doesn't say anything other than they have no wine. That's what the scripture says to him. They have no wine. Jesus is doing all the talking. Mary says 2 things. They have no wine. Do whatever he tells you. That strikes me as being a long way away from the commanding of God. But what it does point out in so many certain respects is the 4th commandment, honor your father and mother. Jesus is doing that. It talks about Mary being the precursor, the ark of the New Testament covenant. She's the carrier she's the Christ bearer.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, and I know this will resonate with you, Michael, but we talk about Mary being the mediatrix of all graces. I know you've heard that phrase.
Yes,
before.
I have. So that is a further take on my point, which you've already rejected. But does Mary again have that sort of authority within the faith?
Whatever power Mary has and whatever authority Mary has is given to her by her Son.
Okay.
Is given to her by the Trinity. It is nothing which she has earned. It is nothing which she demands. It is nothing which she takes. It is all given. And as Eve, as the mother of us all in the physical sense, the temporal sense, Mary is the mother of us all in the spiritual sense. And you're seeing that point counterpoint all along between Mary and Eve, but between a I don't want to say failed existence, but a troubled existence vis-a-vis a perfect existence, where Mary is unblemished, without sin, and is doing everything that she can to promote the salvation of the world. And that's why we get to this concept of mediatrix. That doesn't mean she's causing graces to be sent. No. She is helping to disperse the power of the Lord throughout all of the world. And I know that there are some faiths that just abhor that. And they dislike that greatly. And you always have to ask the question, why?
Well,
and that's where you take off your deacon hat, you put on your lawyer hat, say, why is this?
Well,
why is this?
You know why that is, especially among the Protestant churches, is the Protestants vigorously oppose praying to anyone else or worshiping anyone else other than Jesus and the Trinity.
Mary, and so does the Catholic Church, by the way. We don't worship Mary ever, and that's the biggest misnomer out there. That you and I talked about this last week.
Yes, we did. But Joe, I hear we do pray to Mary and to the saints and to Joseph. Now, what is this? Now, here, let me finish, Joe. I know you're ready to take my head off, but what is the difference between worship and prayer?
Well, one of the primary differences is prayer is an asking, and worship is an adoration of a divine being. That's what worship means, and that's even worship with a small w in the pagan realm, that they are worshiping some kind of a supernatural being.
Yes.
Mary is not that. She's loved human flesh like you and I.
But we're not called to worship Mary or any of the saints.
We are absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay.
But we ask their intercession and help. I mean, I'm out here struggling along as the rest of the unwashed masses of humanity as a sinner, and I have to. Who am I going to turn to help me kind of boost up or get more horsepower, if you will, to make a bad metaphor, to get more horsepower to have my prayers heard? I'm going to ask somebody that's competent and capable and is held in high esteem. Hey, if you're in trouble, you aren't going to go see a lawyer who, does speeding cases if you have a malpractice claim in medicine. You're going to go see somebody who knows his left hand from his right hand. Of course.
Well, I would hope so. If I need one, I'll come to you, Joe, and ask which one of these people out here have a left and right hand or whatever. You don't always know.
Boy, ain't that the truth, my friend?
Am I getting somebody who barely got through law school, or what am I getting here?
It's funny. They have a saying in law school that the A students teach at law school. The B students work for the government. The C and D students make all the money.
I got to tell that one to Mulholland. Oh God.
Nevin and Mark and I were all trial lawyers and have been trial lawyers. They have a saying about trial lawyers that 0.5% of all the lawyers in the United States are trial lawyers. The other 99.5% are the smart ones.
I don't know. I think it would seem to me anyway that being a trial lawyer would be interesting.
It is one of the most exciting professions in the world.
I believe that.
It is. You get to live on the edge all times. I think actors on TV or on the stage, I think they don't hold a candle to trial lawyers who are real trial lawyers, because you have to become an expert in everything that you see.
I'm someone who admires the theater, and I think actors are artists. I don't think that they are political experts of any kind and should shut the hell up. Oh, yeah. If they want to,
Mike, you're just an agitator. That's all there is to it.
It's kind of the job. You want to talk about a job description? Yeah, talk radio host, agitator. Yeah, it all goes together. I'm kind of I can't say I'm a continuance of Ed Breen, and you said it, but and I wish I could find some old episodes of Fred Breen and You Said It, but I think they were pretty much all live episodes, so I don't think there's any around. I have often thought that we should name a city street after Ed Breen, and maybe that'll be a retirement project for me. Did you know Mr. Breen or not?
I did. I knew him because he and my father were friends, and I always admired Ed, and I liked his son Fred very much. I considered Fred to be a friend of mine. But Ed, I see in the newspaper we're looking for people to award the Catalyst Project to. We're looking for nominations. Did you happen to see that?
Yeah, sure. It's this time of year, yeah.
They ought to name the Catalyst Award after Ed Breen.
That's a great suggestion. The next time I see Denny Ploutz, Growth Alliance hasn't been on the air with me for a while, but I understand they're coming back, and that would be an outstanding What am I trying to say?
Yeah, the Ed Breen Award, and then people would say, "Well, who was Ed Breen?" And then we'd have a chance to unload on him and say he was a guy who loved his community as much as anybody that I've seen. I mean, we've got a statue to Kenyon next to the courthouse, and for my money, I think Ed Breen is as worthy of a statue next to the courthouse as Kenyon was. But
he was you know, I undertook a little research on Ed Breen, and I even asked Fred when he was still around about his father, and he was died in the wool Fort Dodge guy, and he did a lot for Fort Dodge out of love of his community and love of the people in this area. And I think that, I mean, he put together one of the first television stations in this area. And I'm sorry that, and, you know, the bad thing is when we had that tornado in 1977, I wasn't living in Fort Dodge then, and it knocked down the old KQTV tower. From what I understand, Mr. Breen said, "Oh, don't worry, we're going to have that TV station back on the air." Well, he died shortly after the tornado, from what I understand, not that much longer after the tornado. Anyway, and we couldn't get the job done, but it was terrific having that little local TV station here in town.
Michael, have you ever spent any time at Old Town over in Omaha?
I have been there, but I haven't spent any significant time. Omaha is a pretty cool town, by the way.
Yeah, it's a huge tourist attraction. And people come in from all over to go, you know, to the French Cafe and the Spaghetti Works and everything else that's there. Well, you know that when downtown was starting to deteriorate, Ed came up with this idea that he kind of wanted to do a Buckminster Fuller thing, you know, the geodesic dome.
Yeah.
And he wanted to cover Main Street.
I remember
and
that.
Make it 4 seasons. Can you imagine what downtown would be like if that was you know, we used to be a whale of a retail center.
I just have a quick story about this. I worked up in Mason City for a short time, and I was talking with some Mason City guys up there, and Ed Breen took that idea to a Iowa Broadcasters Association meeting, and he started talking with a guy by the name of Ken Q, who was a longtime newscaster up at KGLO television station at the time. And he told Q about this, and he came back home and everybody laughed at him. Well, Ken Q pretty much took Ed Breen's idea and put it into the Mason City retail area. If you go up to the retail section on what used to be Old Federal Avenue, it's an enclosed area. It's really a downtown mall, exactly the way Ed Breen envisioned, and they saved their downtown, and we didn't. Now there's an irony for you, Joe.
Yeah, and you know, and Mason City has, you know, Mason City always played second fiddle to Fort Dodge. Always.
Then, yeah.
Then, yes, and you know, and we just kind of let things drift a little bit. But
yes, we did.
Hopefully, we've awakened and are moving in the right direction. We have a lot of people that care. I know that.
We got to go, Joe. Thank you very much.
God bless.
All
Take
right.
care.
Yeah. It's 4:57. This is AM 1400 KVFT.
It's a fact. The best time to prepare for bad times is during good times. When you know a big storm is coming, you prepare in advance. Same goes for our future. Things seem calm right now, so it's the perfect time to prepare for the next big crisis.